Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off with the quick and dead on a Normandy field. We're now on to, just making sure some of these pages are a little weird. Aid for the wounded on the Normandy front. June 9th, 1994. 1944. It's going to be one of those days, you can tell. Casualties on the sands of France. In the picture above, soldiers of an American medical detachment administer first aid to a group of wounded soldiers who received their wounds during the initial attack on the Cherbourg Peninsula. In the picture at the right, members of a U.S. Navy battalion, moving on the doubles, dive for the protection offered by a ditch as a Nazi plane, which broke through the Allied umbrella, swoops down to strafe the shore, somewhere in Normandy. Few enemy planes got through, and those that did were not able to do much damage because of the opposition by Allied planes. Yeah, so you're going to get some planes that get through the umbrella, but many aren't. And the ones that do, they could do some big damage. So they got these foxholes. It's one of the reasons also they had them. So they dig in, jump down, hide in the trench for a few minutes, and poke your head back up, see if it's safe. Two roads back from Normandy. June 9th, 1944. Casualties and prisoners. Into the dark interior of an LST, landing ship tank, passes a steady stream of casualties who fell in the battle for France. In the background, framed by the open bow of the LST, a line of Nazi prisoners marches along another road back from the Normandy front. In the initial operations on the Cherbourg Peninsula, thousands of Nazi prisoners were taken by the advancing Allies. For the most part, they looked very little like the Allies were led to believe they were, representative of the master race. There's quotes there, by the way. They were returned to England as captives and not as the conquering heroes. To some extent, the large number of Nazi captives proved an embarrassment to the Allies. Prisoners had to be guarded, fed, and transported to the rear. The Allies' transportation facilities were already sorely taxed by the demands of their own men, and the prisoners only added to the problem, which would not be eased until the Allies had won a deep water port. Yeah, so early on, obviously, like they just said, they don't necessarily have the logistics for them as much. So it does cause some problems, but when they get the deep water port, it'll be a lot simpler. But as it is now, it's kind of like a headache, but it's against the Geneva Convention to just kill them, so they're not going to do that, thankfully. The long trek back to England. June 9th, 1944. The wounded return from France. Two members of a medical corps unit help a wounded paratrooper officer ashore from an LST at a port in England. Among the first wounded in the landing on the French soil. He will be taken to a military hospital in England. The death toll was minimized by prompt use of blood plasma at field hospitals. The plasma was shipped to France in containers shown below, equipped with dry ice to keep the plasma at the proper temperature. The blood donated by millions of Americans was processed in the United States. So yeah, plasma, blood, a lot of these things, they need a lot of them. They get donations from the United States, things like that, blood drives. And it does help quite a bit. And you can see these little containers. And like I said, you use dry ice, helps to keep it cold, things like that. It's pretty effective. Pretty smart use of the materials and technology of the day. And it's not super advanced, really. You look at it, it's just an insulated barrel. But that's all you really need. You don't need anything super techy, which they were kind of trying to be a little techy during this entire war. But sometimes simple is better. Okay, let me see. We'll turn the page finally. There we go. Sorry about that. The page was not wanting to turn. Two aspects of the landing in France. June 9th, 1944. A landing is affected. View of a beach, which was one of the Allies' objective on the coast of Normandy. It shows the masses of men and equipment being landed from the various landing craft lying offshore, while barge balloons dot the sky to protect the Allied landings from the enemy. Below, casualties rest on their stretchers outside of a field hospital as they await treatment. So yeah, you can see up here the beach, and it's just vast. Men, defenses, supplies, everything. Look at all that. The amount of stuff just right in this picture is crazy. And yeah, so I know some people have a misconception of the word casualty, and it's just because it kind of gets used interchangeably. But casualty means wounded or KIA, or I'm killed. I don't know why I said KIA, but so these guys are just wounded, waiting for their turn to be treated. They'll probably be fine, more than likely. Casualties are also missing, I believe, actually, as well. Backing up the liberation of France. June 10th, 1944. Food for the fray. In the picture at top, a giant U.S. Army field kitchen, towed by a heavy truck, rolls up in the open bow of an LST, landing ship tank, on its way to the shore of Normandy. In the picture below, tanks come ashore at a beachhead on an unnamed sector of the Normandy coast. Yeah, so obviously, field kitchen, very helpful. The men need to eat. They want probably at least decently good warm food. Not necessarily good, but warm at least food. So yeah, get the field kitchen out, help that. And then yes, obviously tanks, vehicles like that, moving up, getting on the beach. You need a good defense in case they have their panzers attack back. So you have counter attacks with tanks. An English sailor visits the U.S. fleet. June 10th, 1944. A distinguished guest of the fleet. Honored guest of the United States Navy, King George VI of Great Britain, visited the British ships under command of Rear Admiral Alan G. Kirk, USN, commander of the U.S. task force operating with His Majesty's fleet. Admiral Kirk met the king ashore and, with him, inspected the units of the U.S. Navy, which played such a great role in the landings. King George's actions record dates back to World War I, when he fought in the Battle of Jutland. So you can see the king and Kirk there. And yeah, a lot of people forget the royalty fought. Even the Queen, she's passed now, but Queen Elizabeth II, she was also driving. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It does not want to focus here. There we go. But Queen Elizabeth, she was a truck driver, I believe, during this war. They don't talk about it. They haven't talked about it, I feel like, in this, but she did do that, drove truck. So she didn't necessarily fight, but still contributed in some way. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of the people really cared for these royals, because they did fight or contribute, not just sat behind. A truck full of commandos. June 12th, 1944. Getting first-hand information. Oh my gosh. Less than 1 week after the initial landings were made, American Army and Navy chiefs paid their first visit to French soil to see the progress of the battles on the beachheads. In this group were, left to right, Rear Admiral Alan G. Kirk, so left to right, right there, Commander of U.S. Task Forces, General George C. Marshall, Chief of Staff, so that guy right there, General Henry H. Arnold, Commander of the U.S. Air Forces, which I believe is that guy right there, who is preparing to lend a hand to General Dwight D. Eisenhower. Right there. Supreme Allied Commander. Good old Ike right there. He's doing a little bit of an interesting pose there, Ike. But he's just trying to reach up and grab his way up. But, yeah, it's interesting to think that all of these guys are in this one truck. It might just be for a photo, obviously. But even still, let's hope that it's a good thing that none of the Germans knew that they were there. That could have been pretty bad. But with that, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I could improve on. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.